Hi, do you want to improve your close rates? I'm Corinne, the MD of Ethical Sales, and I'm here joined with Chris, who is one of our business development consultants. And we've been having some really interesting chats about closing. And I thought it would be really good to share some of our thoughts with you. So, Chris, what's your experience of closing?
So thank you, Corinne, for having me on. We've been having some good chats, as you say, around closing, and I think closing can be quite a mixed bag across the industry and throughout different salespeople. And I've fallen into plenty of pit holes myself in the past, as I'm sure we all have. But I think closing comes a successful close comes a lot from knowing what you want and knowing your client and understanding buying signals. I know we've been having some good chats around this, and you've got some good points on this. So yeah, looking forward to hearing your 4 top tips, and hopefully I can add to them as well. So yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to share mine. Okay, brilliant. Yeah, okay, so I've got like 4 ways that I think we can improve our close rates. And the first one is a question, really. And I think it's a question to all of us, is, are you really at the closing stage? And I think this is important because sometimes we can assume that we've had a good meeting or we've sent that proposal, and actually we're not in the closing stages at all. We're still in the kind of discovery phase, and the buyer doesn't really realize that we are supposed to be kind of finishing the sales cycle. I don't know what you think, Chris, but
yeah, I agree. So we sometimes move to the end of a call and think, and I think some of this harks back to our last conversation in terms of how you set up a meeting with a client and set the expectations. I think we can sometimes move to the end of the call and think that means a close. But really, when it comes to closing time in the call, nobody should be surprised. You yourself as a salesperson should have gone in knowing where you want to get to with that close and have discussed the potential endpoint of the meeting with the client at the start. And then you should be soft closing throughout. So as you're talking about benefits or communicating information the client has asked for, just checking at the end and saying, does that meet what you were expecting? Do you think this could benefit your people? Do you think this is the kind of direction you're looking to move? Simple questions like this, which can be given a yes or no answer, or you can make them more open and get a bit more information. But if you're getting those soft closes and those buying signals throughout from these little checks, when you get to the end, you will know whether you're in a good position to close or not. And also the client shouldn't be surprised either, because they will have been giving you positive signals throughout as well on closing. So yeah, I think soft close is key to knowing where you are in the buying journey, but also, and I'm sure you're going to go into this as well, is knowing what the client's buying process is as well, and where they expect closing to come. So
yeah, and that's a good point. And I think that leads me on to my next point, which is addressing the elephant in the room. And I think sometimes we can be very reluctant to ask those important questions, and that the questions that we find hardest are often around budget and price, but also questions around timeline, timescales, and who else is involved in the process. And so you're right, if you're not asking your buyer those questions and you're not finding out where they think they are, then you can't address their concerns, and you've probably left it too late to do that if you've just sent them a proposal and made too many assumptions. So I think being prepared to ask those difficult questions actually in a live situation, so in a meeting, on the phone, not kind of over email or just assuming and sending a proposal and hoping for the best.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think I think we can be scared sometimes as salespeople, or depending on where we are in our journey, in our careers and our experience, we can be scared to ask for the business. And maybe sometimes it's a cultural thing, but we can sometimes be nervous to say, have you got the money for this? Do you want to buy this? Who do I need to speak to buy this? Because it's almost as if we don't want people to know that we're selling, but we're salespeople, and these people are there to be sold to. And they want you to go through the process in the most informed way possible as well, because they don't want their time wasted. So absolutely, ask these questions, get these questions. If you should be getting these questions in your discovery and qualification phases before. If you can't get them then, get them in the meeting. Otherwise, as you say, you act on assumption, and I'm not going to go into all the different things of why we shouldn't assume and all the little phrases that people like to use. But if we've ever been, and I've been in these calls before myself, where you don't know if you know this information, and maybe you're quite new or something, you don't want to be seen to not knowing these things, but you don't know these things unless you ask. And if you start assuming, then your confidence in the call starts to drop as well, because you're making assumptions about how it works, what their buying signals mean, and what their needs are. So you can completely miss key points that could have helped you close there and then.
Yeah, I like that. And I think that does lead me on to my third point, my third tip, which is about kind of taking the buyer with you. And there are two ways you can do this. One is that you can really listen carefully to the language that they are using, and then using that as a way to show them that you are really listening to what their concerns are and what their pain points are. And often in a meeting, I'll just scribble down stuff and I'll just put a star next to it, because I feel like that key phrase or that term that they've used really gets to the heart of a lot of the problems that they've got. So I think that's one thing. And then the other thing about taking a buyer with you is, at the right point in the process, it's really nice to move that conversation into a we conversation as opposed to a you and an us conversation. So you're using that positive language, and you're able to show them kind of where you're going to be taking them on the journey, and start talking about we. And I find that if that we is well received, and they're like, yeah, we're going to do this and we're going to do that, then that shows that they're really moving to that decision making process. But if they start to shy away and they're a bit more cautious and say, oh well, yes, but, or actually I need to check that, then we know that they're not quite there yet. And then you need to, obviously, as you say, do all your investigating to find out why. And
I think that collaborative language is really important in terms of the we stuff, and because we can sometimes see buy and selling relationships as two ends of an opposite scale. So you've got one person who doesn't want to be sold to and another person who really wants to sell. But really, buying relationships aren't like that. You've normally got someone who wants to buy something, or not even wants to buy something, wants a problem solved, and you're there to solve the problem. So I think using we language and taking the customer along with you helps to kind of break those barriers down, bring it into a collaborative relationship. And I think secondly, using reflective language, as you say, with customers, individuals, helps to let them know that you understand and you are on board with what they're about. So I think there's a confidence and familiarity thing that comes with it, and really brings it into a relationship rather than a transaction.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that. And then this was, again, the fourth way to improve your close rates. And I want to talk about being ghosted, because this comes up a lot, doesn't it? I think the problem with being ghosted is that as salespeople, we can get very sort of disappointed, and we can make lots of assumptions. But also, most importantly, we waste time. We waste time because we're too busy focused on them, and we're not focusing on the ones in our pipeline that might actually yield something. So there's two things I do if I'm being ghosted, or I think we can all do. One is kind of not breaking up with them, but making it clear to them that the ball is in their court, and that we're waiting for a response from them. And then the other thing is just, every now and then just show them that you're around, but it doesn't have to be in a kind of aggressive, why aren't you answering my emails, but maybe on LinkedIn or in other ways to reach out just to show them you're still there. But I think most importantly, don't just waste time on prospects that are ghosting you, because there's loads of other opportunities out there that you're not then taking advantage of.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, like, you know, I could be at risk of getting into dating metaphors and everything here with ghosting and that. But I don't think any of us have ever moved a relationship of any sort to the next phase because we've been pestered by the other person. But I think some of us will have definitely moved things to the next phase once we've been released by something to think about it. And I think as well, it's key, it's important to be persistent. So if someone does go quiet afterwards and you've set your contingencies and they're not meeting the contingencies, do you follow them up? Do you try and get them on the phone? Do you try and ping them, whichever their preferred communication is? Try and provide them with new information each time and try and ask them a specific question around, not just, oh, when can we catch up or something. Try and ask them a specific question around, we would try and get to this point, we need to meet by this date or something, can we do this? But yes, after a couple of attempts, know your value as well and think, actually, this isn't worth my time chasing. It's probably not going to push the customer over the line sending the same message. So leave it where it is. And as you say, send a breakup email, I guess, or just I'll see you another time kind of email. And like you say, and I think as salespeople, we need to be really clear on our own value and our own worth, and we're there to provide benefit through conversation, through helping people buy and solve issues. And I also think that if you know your value and that you can provide that to a customer, you can walk away confident that you have left it on their table to take that benefit. And if they don't want to, that's down to them. There's nothing more you could have done.
Absolutely. And you know, and then, you know, as an ethical salesperson, we walk away with our integrity and intact, knowing that we did everything we could to make that relationship happen. But you know, like I said in an email to someone the other day, we're not miracle workers either. We're just normal people, you know. So we can't make magic happen. We can get relationships working well, you know, as much as possible if there's an alignment there. So, well, thanks, Chris. That was really, really helpful. It was good to explore those tips with you, and I hope that's been helpful for you guys out there. Please do follow, subscribe to our YouTube channel if you like what you're watching today, and do drop us a line and let us know how you're getting on with your closing. Thanks, Chris. See you again soon.
Thank you, Corinne. See you soon.
Thank you.